Hello everyone, this is Dilshani from Literary Genius, and this is our third video in the series of analyzing Life of Pi. So Life of Pi is divided into three parts, as you may already know, and today we are going to discuss the first part, that is Toronto and Pondicherry. Toronto is a city in Canada and Pondicherry is a town in India which used to be a French colonial settlement, and the novel is set in 1970s. The first part begins from Toronto, where Pi recalls his time studying religious studies and zoology at the University of Toronto, and gradually he starts going back in time. He mentions Richard Parker, whose memories he claims has stayed with him for such a long time. Then he recalls the times he spent at the Mexican hospital, where he was treated after being found by a group of people, when he was finally washed up onto the shore of Mexico after 227 days of being shipwrecked. And then he moves on to reminiscing about his childhood in Pondicherry. His father owned a zoo back in the days, and they had to sell it, unfortunately, because of the emergency period. This emergency period is a period of 18 months where the then Indian Prime Minister Mrs. Indira Gandhi declared a state of emergency across India, suspending constitutional rights and giving herself the power to rule by decree. Because of this uncertainty of the political backdrop and the unrest among people, Patel family decided that it is best to leave India and move on to Canada. Unfortunately, however, their ship sinks on their way to Canada, and that marks the end of the first part of the novel. Now, I will highlight some important aspects in terms of the structure of the first part, and you can apply this to the entire novel. And I will then go on to highlight some thematic aspects in the first part. However, I will do this in my next video because I need to talk about the structure first, because that's very important. Structurally speaking, the novel doesn't follow the traditional narrative structure, and traditionally we know that novels flow according to a chronological order. That means that they are arranged in order of time of the incidents. It has a beginning, it has a middle, it has an end. But this novel, Life of Pi, however, doesn't follow this order. It keeps shifting back and forth in time. It actually starts from the middle, when he was a graduate student doing his masters in Toronto. Then he goes back in time and then suddenly comes back to the present, so on and so forth. So this is a feature of modern novels, that they don't follow a chronological order of incidents, narrating incidents. And it actually, the constant shifting of the narration between past, present, actually creates a suspense and arouses the reader's curiosity, because he doesn't give us all the details in the beginning, because he mentions Richard Parker, but we don't know who he is, and he refers to certain points in his life, but we don't know what he's talking about because we are not familiar with the entire novel. So he's giving us bits and pieces of information, and it arouses our curiosity, and sometimes it increases the suspense. And secondly, the narrative is punctuated with the observations made by the anonymous author, and these instances actually kind of disrupt the narrative flow. And these brief moments where the anonymous author punctuates Pi's narrative remind us that we are still within the larger frame of the anonymous author's story. Remember, we talked about this being a frame narrative, that a story within a story? Yes, these are the evidences that we can use to prove that Pi's story is told to us within the frame of that larger narrative made by the anonymous author. Another interesting feature about these anonymous authors' observation is that they are segmented as very small chapters. Sometimes these chapters have only one paragraph. For example, you can take a look at the second chapter in the novel. So Martel apparently, and it's clear that he disregards the traditional ways of writing novels to a great extent. So structurally, we talked about 3 points, okay? And the first point is that novel doesn't follow the traditional chronological way of narrating incidents, and second, that Pi's story is punctuated with observations made by the anonymous author, which reminds us that this is a framed narrative. And third, the anonymous author's observations are segmented into very separate small chapters. And all these three structural features tell us that this novel doesn't follow the traditional way of writing novels. So we can call it a modern novel for that matter. Okay, with that we come to the end of our video, and I'll discuss the predominant features of the first part in my next video because we don't have enough time for this now. And I request you just go through the things we discussed, think about what we talked about, and it will help you in the long run, I'm sure. So I wish you luck and thanks for watching.